healthcare workers have carried, there's been a lot of mental stress. They've carried a heavy burden during the COVID-19 crisis, and in the challenge to control the virus, have directly faced its consequences, mounting deaths, long hours, isolation, lack of resources, and the risk of contracting COVID-19 has led to mental health disorders like anxiety, stress, depression, and other psychological issues. To talk about the psychological impact on the frontline workers, we have with us Captain Usha Banerjee, Director of Nursing, Apollo Hospitals, Jitinder Singh Shanti, Shaheed Bhagat Singh Seva Dal, and he's a Padma Shri awardee, Dr. Prashant Saxena, Director and Head Pulmonology and Sleep Medicine, Max Smart Hospital, Ranjan Dora, Volunteer, India Shield, and of course we have Mr. Dilen Gandhi joining us for this panel. And we also have with us a very special guest, Masaba Gupta, who's going to be joining us as a co-anchor to steer us through this hour. Thank you, Masaba, for joining us today.
Thank you.
My first question to you is, Masaba, the pandemic has forced us, out in the open. It's been really tough on each one of us. Issues related to mental health have come out even more now. Even if, people aren't suffering mental health problems, they're certainly, somewhere they're fatigued, right? Because of isolation, the worry, the uncertainty. So how have you coped with this in the last 2 years?
So, Ambika, I feel like isolation is a very charming thing for the privileged, but not a very happy experience for those who aren't privileged. And I think that for me, the last 2 years have been tough, but very liberating at the same time. I think being a business owner, we're a small business. We had not just my own personal problems to deal with in this time, but also the problems of all the employees that that kind of are attached to you. And I think while you want to make sure that you're taking care of your own well-being, I think it's also important to keep in mind that your employees go with you, and it's important to think of their mental health, their state of mind at the time. And we were working through the pandemic, but I think for me it was a period of I internalized everything in a way, and for me it was a period where I discovered so many things about myself as an entrepreneur, as a woman, as a daughter, and also as to how I want to lead my life. But I think I come back to the same point that I had the privilege of being liberated through my isolation, but a lot of people I know didn't feel that way. But I think it's also been, I wish it came in another way to people, but it's been a very, very important time for all of us, because I think we've become kinder.
For sure.
We've become kinder to one another. We've become a bit more aware of what the other is going through, about mental health, which is and was such a big taboo in this country. That I feel like today people will openly come out and address their problems instead of putting them under the carpet, which I'm very, very happy about in a way.
Definitely, we're talking about it much more.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think, more importantly, Ambika, I feel like today you have girls who are 18 as well as older women who are equally talking about their mental health issues. And I think the most important thing that has come out of this pandemic is that everyone has now set their own boundaries, when it comes to mental health. And I think that that's a big part, plays a big part in how we all define our mental health, what boundaries we set around us. So I think that's a great takeaway in the last 2 years.
And it's impacted everybody, from the senior citizens. I mean, it's not left anybody. So I'm glad we're talking about this during this hour.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, I was talking to one of the doctors at a hospital the other day, and which is why my next question was to Mr. Saxena in just a minute. But what I noticed was that I've never seen a doctor not happy or not bright or not positive. I've always, And now I saw this woman who looked like she had been defeated, and she's a senior doctor, and which is why I started to think about, we can talk about our mental health being on the other side, but what about these guys who are on the front line?
And they have to
which is why my next question is to Dr. Prashant Saxena. Doctor, while helping patients is always something that's, on your mind at all times as a healthcare worker, is it possible that doctors aren't looking after themselves through this whole process? And I feel like what this pandemic has done is that Doctors are working overtime, they are away from their families in some cases, they have had loss of all kinds, and they really don't see the end of this anytime soon. So how do you think medical workers are coping with this very, very trying time?
Yeah, so thank you for the question. If we talk about medical profession and being a doctor, I believe it is one of the most physically, mentally and emotionally demanding profession. And one has to be good in all the three streams. Otherwise, you cannot be a good doctor. But this COVID times tested us really very well, because the second wave came as a shock. It was unpredictable. We were not prepared. We were prepared, but not fully prepared. And there was a lot of stress and anxiety, primarily because there was a concern about our own health. Then there was a concern about our family members. There was a concern we can transmit our infections to the family members. So we were repeatedly going on quarantines and we were socially isolated. So we had to live in different houses. And not only this, those people who were living in societies, there was a lot of social stigma. And because some of the societies even banned the entrance of healthcare workers. So a lot of factors were playing at the time. Depression and emotional disturbances, because as you said, we had loss of many doctors, many colleagues whose lives were lost while battling against COVID. And there was a burnout, complete burnout, because at one point of time, I was seeing close to 100 patients, 150 patients on OPD basis. And there was no time left for me to sleep. There was insomnia, there was exhaustion, and I believe there was an excessively overburdened healthcare system at that time. But I believe we strongly came out. We had to be strong because there was no way we could have been weak, because the enemy was very, very strong. And finally, in our delight, the COVID epidemic ended and we were saved. A lot of lives were lost, but in the end, we did well and were able to manage our patients very well.
Dr. Saxena, just one question that popped up right now. Experienced healthcare workers and doctors obviously are very well equipped in a sense to, not really, but better equipped, I would say, to deal with something like this as opposed to the younger healthcare workers. And I want to talk a little bit about that. What happens to all these young aspirants who've wanted to become doctors and nurses, and they've just been thrown right in the middle of a raging pandemic? Can you shed some light upon their mental state through this time?
I didn't get the question. I didn't get the question.
Could I, am I audible?
Maybe you can repeat.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
So, Dr. Saxena, my question was that, of course, you have a lot more experienced healthcare workers and doctors who've been in the profession for many years. They're a bit better equipped to deal with a pandemic like this. But what happens to the younger healthcare workers who've been thrown right in the middle of a raging pandemic? What happens to their mental health?
Yeah, a very important and a very valid point, because most of the frontline workers, including the doctors, were very young. They were not experienced in handling the situation. But I think the role of senior doctors and clinicians was very important at that stage. And we were the ones who were constantly trying to encourage them. We were trying to build up their emotional morale, and we were trying to help them as far as possible, trying to talk to the families also, because the families were also very apprehensive, because they had no idea what sort of duties their kids were doing, and there was always a fear that a life may be lost. So it was all a team effort. There was a lot of emotional support. There was a lot of bonding which happened between us. And in fact, it was a remarkable effort put in by a lot of administrative colleagues also, which helped us. So it was a battle which had to be fought together. And the younger generation had to be emotionally and physically and mentally, all the aspects we had to be met up, and we tried to help them in every corner.
Thank you. Thank you.
साहब, मैं आपको ये बताता चलूं कि मसाबा जो हैं वो यहाँ पर को एंकर हैं, इनको कौन नहीं जानता, बिल्कुल सही बात है, लेकिन ये आज
Actually, we can just relax.
अब हम लोग और जा रहे हैं, मसाबा आ गई.
I have a question for Captain Usha. Ma'am, the
the emotional well-being of nurses was challenged like never before by COVID. And I can speak from a certain amount of experience because when I was in hospital, this was one aspect that I noticed was very severe. Long hours caring for patients, fears about contracting the virus, separation from loved ones, also being the only link between the family and the patient, and this is very important, A lot of the patients feel that they don't see anybody. They just see these white-dressed people whose faces they cannot recognize.
Yeah.
And they're cut away. So what would you have to say about that?
Sir, unfortunately, I'm not able to hear you very clearly today.
All right, I'll repeat my...
There is an audio problem, but I understand. I just faintly heard you. I heard that, patients and the staff go through a huge emotional roller coaster while being in these kind of units, isolated. If that's what I heard you, then my answer would be that, yes, it's a very, very trying time for all of us, especially for the frontline healthcare workers. They are right there at the bedside of the sick and ailing. And many a times we've seen that the patients are left alone in these units without family, without near and dear ones. And they carry a lot of sensitivities of caring and nurturing to these sick who are there in the hands of very young people who are frontline workers. If you see the young doctors, the young nurses, they are all very young people. It's really, really traumatic to see someone dying. It's, it's hard to say goodbye, hard to see that, families do not know much about the patients while they're in there alone. So I think the whole healthcare workers have been put to immense stress and trauma in this period. And fortunately, the profession has taught us resilience. It has taught us duty, devotion, and care to the people who need our service. But then there is always this fear of the unknown, an impending fear, do not know what's going to happen next. Young people leaving back their families at home, coming to work. I think it calls for a different DNA to handle the mammoth task that we have all undergone in this past year. As such, representing the nurses of this country, I must tell you that nursing is a very hard profession. And young people coming to work without knowing what's in store for them, without fear. I think we salute the entire workers of this country today for having stepped in and taken charge with courage, conviction, and care and competence, and putting the country back on the map today to say that with great pride that we have handled the situation, we have learned lessons, we will work harder if there is an impending situation like this, and I'm sure we will come out of it strong.
Yeah, thank you so much, Captain Usha. One of the things that I noticed during the time when I was in hospital was they were very early stages of the virus and the infection and the condition that all the patients were landing up in ICUs. And there were many occasions, Pranay, when the patient would desperately ask the nurses, give me something, please save my life. And the nurses were just so handicapped because no cure had been organized till then. And they just didn't know what to do. And there were times, I don't know whether this should be allowed to be spoken, but there were times when they were just giving them an ordinary aspirin tablet to make them feel comfortable because they knew that the patient was not going to survive. And that kind of trauma was actually breaking down these nurses. And they would come and narrate these incidents to us. How do they deal with this, Captain Usha? I mean, is there an organization that deals with the mental status of these wonderful people? They're like angels inside the ICU and in the hospital.
So well said. I'm sorry, this audio is very, very difficult for me. I've been really gathering all my strength to hear what you're trying to say. So apologize if I have not heard you right. Probably I understand that you're asking us, what is it that makes the nurses so strong to come to work and take care of patients? Especially you've described a situation where the nurses would be asked by the patients to save their lives. Yes, sir, I would say that the organizations have, fortunately, in the last few years, focusing on the mental health and wellness of the frontline healthcare workers, because they know that there is burnout, there's trauma, there is this emotional baggage people carry, and sometimes nurses and doctors feel like second victims. So I think the last few years has seen some kind of investment into psychological well-being, managing stress at work, preventing burnout, and a whole host of wellness programs that have been brought in. So I think somewhat we had started to walk the path. Nevertheless, I would never discount the mammoth task that was in front of us, where we had to step in with courage, not knowing what's going to happen to us. And we've seen that a lot of people were torn apart when there were these mass deaths that were taking place and the country was torn apart. It had a psychological bearing on every single person. But I'm sure, we've learned this, that we have to conduct constant well-being programs. We need to talk about stress. We need to talk about our feelings. There have been helplines. Fortunately, doctors came together, nurses came together. This pandemic has united the entire world, where even nursing associations from the more developed countries came together to help. And I felt even sometimes just speaking out in a group or speaking out what you went through, venting out these kind of issues, have seen that people have been able to cope with this situation. Because coping with emotional anxiety and the situation has been a big stress for the entire workforce. And I'm glad everybody is now walking up and seeking help.
Yeah.
That stigma that we talk about is probably now slowly evading away from our healthcare workers, and every organization is sensitive to it. As such, we work in oncology, pediatrics, neonatology. I know while we celebrate the miracle of birth, we see a lot of death, and we stand in with dignity to support that.
True.
And I think in the days to come, psychological well-being and mental health, both for families, for our frontline healthcare workers, for administrators like us too, matters a lot. And I'm sure this is going to pave way to see that this is going to be a new frontier for all of us. And we will all be benefited with the psychological support systems that might fall into place.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's not just the nurses, even the doctors. They said, look, I've trained, I've spent so many years learning the craft of being a doctor. And my mission is to be able to cure people, to save lives.
Yeah.
And they've stood in front of a patient and said, this is what I was trained for. I can't do anything because I really don't know
Nobody knew
how to cure him. And they've actually given up their profession in frustration. Many of them have just given up. Said, I'm not going to do this anymore. Because what I was trained for, what I worked hard for, I can't do anything because I don't know.
Yeah.
Even after so many years of education, I still don't know what to do. I was terribly frustrated. Anyway, I have a question for Mr. Jiten Shanti. Jitenji, I know that you have been responsible for a very sensitive job. Your organization has cremated more than 4,000 people, all of them strangers, and some of them, just not being able to be identified. You slept in an ambulance for days outside your home, Jitenji. Your family tested positive twice. You lost an ambulance driver to COVID, but you kept going on. How difficult was that period for you, both mentally and emotionally?
अमिताभ जी, बचपन से गुरबानी में एक ही बात पढ़ते आए थे कि देह शिवा बरमोहे एहे, शुभ कर्मन ते कब हो न टरो और सो जब जाए लरो, निश्चय कर अपनी जीत करो। जब पहला पेंडेमिक आया, मेरे को मेरे दोनों बेटे जोत, मनीष, मेरी मिसिज, पूरे ड्राइवर सब पॉजिटिव हो गए, लेकिन ईश्वर ने हमें शक्ति दी काम करने की। उस शक्ति में 1366 डेड बॉडी हमने क्रिमेट किया और 2600 से ज्यादा पेशेंट को भी कैरी किया। तब तक मेरे पास 12 एम्बुलेंसेज और शव वाहन थे। एक ड्राइवर जो मेरे पास 25 साल पुराना था, वो 2 दिन में डेथ हो गया उसका। ही वॉज डेप्टिक। मेरे ड्राइवर थोड़े घबरा गए। मैं उन ड्राइवरों को पायलट कहता हूं और कई बार मैं उनको भगवान भी कहता हूं, दूत कहता हूं मैं। इस कोविड में उनका काम दूत वाला था। मैंने ड्राइवर्स को कहा, आप डर रहे हैं क्या? कहने लगे, जी हमारे छोटे छोटे बच्चे हैं, कैसे करेंगे? मैंने कहा, यार हम एज ए मिलिट्री काम कर रहे हैं, सामने वाले देश वाले हमारे एक फौजी को मार देते हैं, अब हमने पीछे भागना है या आगे जाना है? तो मेरे ड्राइवर्स ने बड़ा दिल करके कहा, कहते शंटी जी हमने ना अब उनको मारना है, अंदर जाके मारना है। तो मैंने कहा, हमने भी अब कोविड को मारना है। मेरा चाहे पूरा परिवार रहे ना रहे, मैं रहूं ना रहूं, 25 साल से ऑलरेडी शहीद भगत सिंह सेवा दल सेवा कर रहे हैं। यार आज देश के ऊपर इतनी बड़ी विपदा आई है, मानवता के ऊपर विपदा आई है, हम नहीं पीछे हटेंगे। और हम करते रहे। दूसरा पैंडेमिक आ गया। मैं जो देखा है अमिताभ जी, लोगों ने तो शायद टीवी में देखा और सुना होगा, और मैं शमशान घाट में 18 से 20 घंटे रहा, और पूरा परिवार जब पॉजिटिव हो गया, मैं 22 दिन कार में भी सोया। जो मैंने देखा है अगर मैं बताता हूं, मेरी ये जो रोंगटे हैं खड़े हो जाते हैं और रात को नींद नहीं आती है। एक परिवार से एक नहीं, 2 नहीं, 4-4 लाशें भी उठाई हैं हमने एक दिन में। चाहे वो अमीर था, चाहे वो गरीब था, चाहे वो करोड़पति था, लाश उठाने का कोई साधन नहीं था उनके पास। झगड़ा होता है तो पुलिस को बुलाते हैं, मरीज होता है एम्बुलेंस, डेड बॉडी का कोई नंबर ही नहीं है। अब वो जिसको भी फोन करते थे कहते शंटी को फोन करो, शहीद भगत सिंह को फोन करो। अब मेरे ड्राइवर्स ने और शमशान घाट पे काम करने वाले मेरे उन कर्मचारियों ने 20-20 घंटे काम किया। मेरा छोटा बेटा लंदन से डिजास्टर में मास्टर करके आया है, वो मुझे पूरा आइडिया देता रहता था। मेरी मिसेज ने बड़ा सहयोग किया। सबने यही कहा, मैं अरदास करके गया था कि हे परमात्मा, लोग घरों में भी तो मर रहे हैं ना, मुझे मौत आए तो शमशान में आ जाए, लेकिन देश के लिए मैं काम करूंगा, काम से पीछे नहीं हटूंगा। सर 125-150 लाशों को फूकने के बाद जब मैं बाहर निकलता था, 5 लावारिस पड़ी होती थी। जब उसके ऊपर नंबर लिखा होता था पीपी किट पे हम पढ़ते थे, फोन करते थे, वो कहते थे शंटी जी पहले हम अस्पताल में थक गए, फिर मोर्चरी में टूट गए, अब 6 घंटे शमशान के बाहर बैठे हुए हैं, अब टूट चुके हैं, आप करा दीजिए। सॉरी, वो समय ऐसे था अमिताभ जी, बचपन में मैंने दूध की बोतलों की लाइन लगती देखी है और राशन की दुकान पर लाइन लगती देखी है, लेकिन शमशान घाट के बाहर 40-40 लोग लाशें लेके खड़े हैं, ये मैंने पहली बार देखा है जी। 40-40 लाशें, और उसमें से आधे से ज्यादा के पास पैसे नहीं होते थे, क्योंकि बेचारे कुछ अस्पताल में खर्चाए, कुछ शमशान में, सॉरी मोर्चरी में, फिर एम्बुलेंस वालों ने उस समय आपको पता है ऊटपटांग कई लोगों से पैसे लिए, तो जब मेरे पास आते थे तो उनकी जेब खाली होती थी। तो मैंने वहां लकड़ी का लंगर लगा दिया। मैंने फेसबुक पे अपील डाली, लगभग 300 टन लकड़ी लोगों ने शमशान के बाहर लगा दी ढेर। कोई आया, मुझे एम्बुलेंस पकड़ा गया। हमने भी उस शमशान को एक मंदिर का रूप दे दिया। भोजन फ्री, कोल्ड ड्रिंक फ्री, पानी फ्री, टेंट फ्री, और पंखे लगा दिए, कुर्सियां बिछा दी। लेकिन अपने जीवन में मैंने इतना भयानक मंजर नहीं देखा, और शायद 200 साल तक इसे लोग नहीं भूलेंगे, क्योंकि एक छोटा सा शमशान घाट जहां 3 डेड बॉडी की एवरेज थी, अब 150 डेड बॉडी आ रही थी, 150। और लोग ऐसे आंखें उठा के देखते थे कि हे परमात्मा, को तीसरी शक्ति आ जाए जो हमें बचा ले, क्योंकि किसी का फोन मिला रहे, कोई फोन नहीं उठा रहा। हॉस्पिटल जाते हैं तो वहां लिखा है नो ऑक्सीजन, नो एडमिशन। मेरा हौसला उस दिन टूट गया जब 20 साल की बच्ची मुझे फोन करती है, अंकल मेरे पापा की डेथ हो गई है, जिस शमशान घाट पे जा रही हूं वो 18-18, 12-12 घंटे कह रहे हैं, कैसे करूं? मैंने कहा बेटा मैं गाड़ी भेजता हूं, आप कहां रहते हैं? थोड़ी देर बाद बच्ची मेरे पास आ गई, मैं शमशान के बाहर ही बैठता था। तो कहती अंकल मैंने आपका फोन किया था। मैंने कहा बेटा आप यहां क्यों आ गए, मेरी एम्बुलेंस ले जाओ। कहने लगी अंकल मैं पापा की लाश कार में लेके आ गई हूं। मैंने कहा कार में लाश लेके आ गई, क्यों बेटा? कहने लगी अंकल मैं कल रात से पापा को लेके 12 हॉस्पिटल्स में गई, किसी में जगह नहीं मिली। 5 बजे सुबह ऑक्सीजन खत्म हो गई, पापा की मौत हो गई। अब 6 घंटे से मैं अलग अलग शमशान घाट में जा रही हूं, कोई जगह नहीं मिल रही। ये हालात मैंने देखे। उस बच्ची को वो भूलेगा, सारी जिंदगी भूलेगा जी। एक सुप्रीम कोर्ट की वकील मेरे पास आके कहती है शंटी जी मैं आपके आगे हाथ जोड़ती हूं, भीख मांगती हूं, मेरे भाई का संस्कार करा दीजिए। तो मैं मतलब वो डिप्रेशन, अभी तक हम उस डिप्रेशन से निकले नहीं हैं। मैं, मेरे बच्चे, मेरी मिसेज, मेरे ड्राइवर, मेरे वॉरियर्स जिन्होंने इतना काम किया है इस कोरोना के अंदर, आज भी बिना किसी सरकारी मदद के, हम 25 साल से ऑलरेडी कर रहे हैं, लेकिन आज जो काम करने के बाद हमें सुकून मिला है कि हमने कुछ देश के लिए किया है। लेकिन वो जो शॉट्स है, वो जो सीन है, वो परिवारों का जाना, एक एक परिवार से 4-4, 5 लोगों का डेड बॉडीज का आना, मैं भूल नहीं पा रहा।
बिल्कुल,
वेरी मूविंग, वेरी मूविंग। बहुत ही भावुक कर दिया आपने जितेंद्र जी, और कैसी समस्याओं और कैसी मनस्थिति से आप गुजरे होंगे ये हम सब समझ सकते हैं। लेकिन दाद आप देते हैं हम आपको और आपकी संस्था को, जिन्होंने इतनी खूबी के साथ ऐसी परिस्थितियों के साथ भी आपने सामना किया, और देश आपको सलाम करता है जी।
मैं तो आपसे भी गुजारिश करूंगा कि आप आने वाले समय के लिए लोगों को कहिए कि आप किसी प्रशासन पर निर्भर मत रहिए। आपके घर में लाइट नहीं आती, इन्वर्टर लगाते हैं ना, पानी अच्छा नहीं आता, आरओ लगाते हैं ना जी, सिक्योरिटी के लिए सीसीटीवी कैमरे लगाते हैं, तो क्यों ना हम अपने घरों में अपना इंतजाम रखें। एक एक ऑक्सीजन का सिलेंडर, एक कंसंट्रेटर, और कम्युनिटी बेस्ड, चाहे मंदिर है, चाहे गुरुद्वारा है, चाहे क्लब है, चाहे सोसाइटी है, एक एक एम्बुलेंस भी ले सकते हैं वो
जी।
अगर हमारी शहीद भगत सिंह सेवा दल छोटी सी संस्था आज 24 एम्बुलेंस और शव वाहन रन कर सकती है, और आप बिलीव नहीं करेंगे जो मैं कहने जा रहा हूं कि मैंने 95 में शुरू किया था, जब मैंने एक गरीब व्यक्ति को अपने बच्चे के दाह संस्कार के लिए लोगों की लकड़ियां उठाते हुए देखा था, जली हुई लकड़ियां, तो मैंने सोचा चोरी कर रहा है। उस व्यक्ति ने जब मुझे बताया कि मेरे पास पैसे नहीं है, मैं प्रदेश से आया था इलाज कराने, और आज संस्कार के पैसे ना होने के कारण मैं संस्कार लकड़ियां उठा के कर रहा हूं, बची हुई लकड़ियां, तो हमें लगा यार उस राष्ट्रीय राजधानी में जहां करोड़ों रुपए के फ्लैट में रहते हैं लोग, करोड़ रुपए की कार में घूमते हैं, शादी में लगाते हैं,
ये स्थिति है। बिल्कुल शंटी जी, जैसे ही रंजन डोरा भी हैं, ऐसे दीज आर सम गुड समैरिटन्स, पीपल हु आर, we really need more of them.
Amazing.
Yes,
We really need. Ranjan Dora is also with us, Masaba.
Yeah. So, Ranjan sir, my next question is to you, and an equally tough one. You worked through a major personal crisis. You were attending SOS calls from across the country as a volunteer for the India Shield chatbot. Now, obviously, there was this completely overwhelming sense of just being helpless in this face of the scale of this pandemic, which we haven't really spoken about much, but just being helpless in the face of this has caused so many breakdowns amongst the many people who volunteered during the second wave, hasn't it? And what I want to ask you really is, at what point does someone like you and your volunteers, at what point does it not become a personal about you anymore, and it's just about the people that you're helping? What is it? What is that one thing that it takes for you to make that shift?
Thank you. Dilen ji ki baatein just took me back to that time, and it has become suddenly so difficult to remember all of it and go through it again. I joined into volunteering after a group of strangers in a movie WhatsApp group helped me to find oxygen cylinder for someone I knew. And while I was extremely thankful to the group, it was then when I fully understood the chaos and the pressure there, and the collective passion of absolute strangers coming together to support one life.
Right.
And it made me want to be available for others, and I'm sure that's true for so many volunteers out there. We would see helplessness everywhere. The frontline health workers have been living those moments every second of the day, and their families were in great distress, and it only felt right to do your bit. But it was very difficult. It is something that it isn't something that you were used to do or had planned to do ever. I was working with a team of 50 volunteers in the southern part of India for India Shield, and all of us were working, restlessly for families to find beds, ICUs, oxygen cylinders, plasma, ambulances, medicines, and most importantly, give them one tiny ray of hope that, we will be able to come with help for you. However, it would also mean witnessing deaths and the despairing families. How do you forget a loss and continue with giving new hope and taking up numerous more cases day in and day out? Many of us would also get attached to the families going through the issue, and it was a race against time all the time. And to answer your question, it just takes me back to that time when I remember a mother of a 21-year-old boy battling COVID in advanced stages, screaming at me, "Ki Ranjan, kya kar rahe ho yaar? Kab milega injection?" Or while speaking to a helpline where I had to find 2 ICUs for 2 patients of mine, and I was asked to select one patient only because there was one bed available, a bed that I was trying, I think for 2 days I had been calling non-stop. How do you decide? Or a hospital staff reaching out to us saying that they have ran out of oxygen and need 77 oxygen cylinders by evening, otherwise they will lose a lot of patients, many of whom were under 30 years old. And, it's a very complicated emotional landscape where you experience high level of distress and helplessness for every life lost, but also there's high level of satisfaction for even one life saved.
Yeah, and no time to grieve. I mean, you don't have the time to grieve, and you just move on from one loss to the other, which is challenging.
Yeah. I mean, I remember the breaking point in my case came when I got a call that we have lost a family member. I had lost a family member to COVID, and at that very moment, I got a call from one of the patient's family members who was hospital hopping to find a bed the entire day. Again, screaming at me, saying कि मैं अपने mother को hospital के बाहर लेके खड़ा हूँ. I will lose her if you don't help me. And he lost her eventually. And at that point in time, it became so difficult for me to continue. Even now, I have those voices playing in my mind. And I was at it 24/7. Family had taken a backseat. Our own mental and physical health was the priority. My team would talk about taking frequent breaks. There was no time. We would take a break, then get a call from someone like 2-3 a.m. in the morning and be back at it. All we cared about was, can I save one more family? And, there was no time to rest. And
Thank you, Ranjan. It was, I think, putting your grief aside, putting your family aside, you've done a lot for the country at this time. Thank you.
I'd like to ask Monali ji, नमस्कार. एक तो बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद, आपने यहाँ पर हमारे लिए एक परफॉर्मेंस दिया. संगीत और इस तरह का वातावरण जब बनता है तो जैसे कि हमारी महामारी थी, उसमें बहुत सारे विपत्तियाँ आती हैं, और ऐसा देखा गया है कि संगीत हो या कोई एक अच्छा वातावरण बन जाए संगीत के साथ जिसका संबंध हो, तो जो फ्रंटलाइन वॉरियर्स हैं उनको काफ़ी असर पड़ता है इसका. आपके साथ कभी ऐसा हुआ या आपने देखा हो या कुछ आपका ऐसा कोई अनुभव रहा हो?
मेरे खुद के साथ अनुभव रहा है सर.
जी.
मैं आर्टिस्ट हूँ, बट मैं खुद ऑडियंस भी हूँ, और हम when I was listening to this, it was a little becoming difficult for me, क्योंकि strangely last year एक दिन बाद, मतलब 4th of October, मैंने अपने पिताजी को खो दिया, जो मेरे लाइफ के सबसे बड़े इंस्पिरेशन हैं भी, सबसे बड़े गुरु भी थे. So for my entire family, of course, besides ये पैंडमिक और आइसोलेशन, और मैं दूसरे देश में थी, तो मैंने अपने पिताजी को मैं देख भी नहीं पाई, क्योंकि फ़्लाइट सारे कैंसिल हो चुके थे इस टाइम पे, बिकॉज ऑफ इंटरनल टेक्निकल प्रॉब्लम्स, एयरलाइंस हमारे जो भी है. बट मैं कह सकती हूँ ऑफ कोर्स हम फॉर्चुनेट हैं, हम आर्टिस्ट हैं, हम कलाकार हैं, तो हम शायद खुद को भी कभी कभार एंटरटेन कर सकते हैं, बट म्यूज़िक इज़ समथिंग, आर्ट एंड क्राफ्ट इज़ समथिंग जो कोई भी चीज़ को शायद हील कर सकता है। और मैंने खुद सपोर्ट लिया दूसरों के म्यूज़िक का, क्योंकि आई वॉज नॉट बीइंग एबल टू डू एनीथिंग फॉर माई सेल्फ, बट येस आई थिंक सुर हम गुरुजी बोलते थे सुर होता है तो असुर नहीं रहते, यू नो, सो लाइक दैट इन दीज डिफिकल्ट टाइम्स आई एम श्योर म्यूज़िक मस्ट हैव हेल्प्ड, बट आई थिंक ये इतना ज़्यादा इंटेंस था, ये पूरा जो गुजरा है लोगों पे, बहुत तरीके के प्रॉब्लम्स, आई थिंक म्यूज़िक ने शायद थोड़ा सा कुछ तो हेल्प किया होगा।
मन हल्का हो जाता है थोड़ा सा।
हाँ वही,
अच्छा संगीत
आप
सुन
भूल
करके।
जाते हो शायद प्रॉब्लम्स को। मैं सुनती थी तो मैं रोती थी बट वो भी आउटलेट होता है हर एक तरीके का, बट आई एम श्योर इमोशंस तो आते ही हैं, म्यूजिक दैट्स व्हाट म्यूजिक डज टू एवरी सोल आई थिंक।
थैंक यू
जी मोनाली जी, आपका और आप सबका बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद जो हमारे साथ इस भाग में जुड़े।